had something happen that I consider to be a miracle. I'm a teacher, professor, and a sculptor. Something I was working on. I believe, I firmly believe that a miracle happened.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God, those moments when heaven and earth collide. And we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, near-death experiences, visions, big and little God incidents. In this episode, a very definitive divine intervention. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome. So glad you are here. Thank you very much.
I had something happen that I consider to be a miracle.
That's Gary Giacchetti, a sculptor from New Jersey.
How do I start this?
How about we start, I don't know, a couple of thousand years ago. Remember when Jesus is walking around and these guys start following him? About a dozen of them or so, right? And he says to them, okay, you guys have been catching fish. Now you're going to be fishers of men. Now you're going to cast your nets and you're going to catch people. That's what you're going to do when you cast those nets. You know, if you take a look at the word cast, lots of different definitions for cast. You can cast a net, like throwing a net. You can cast a shadow. You can cast your vote. If you're an artist, you can make a cast to create a piece of art. And that's where we begin with Gary Giacchetti. He is a sculptor.
I'm a teacher, professor, and a sculptor.
How does one become one of those? Was that like an early thing? Like you started making ashtrays for Dad first and worked from there?
I did art all my life, but I went to college and gravitated towards 3D, and I have my degree in sculpture.
So let's get to that event that Gary believes is a miracle.
Something I was working on. I believe, I firmly believe that a miracle happened.
This story involves one of the original apostles, one of the 12. And it's not like we know a lot about these guys. We really, yes, they were fishermen, little bits and pieces in the Bible. We know more, I guess, about Peter than any of them, of course. And actually, the apostle we're going to be talking about is Peter's brother. Now, which one was that? Anyone? Bible for 400, Alex? But this has to do with intercessory prayer, and sometimes they intercede without even asking. Here's Gary Giacchetti, and one of the apostles that is still casting the nets.
I got a commission to do a St. Andrew the Apostle statue for a church, St. Andrew the Apostle parish in Gibbsboro, New Jersey.
All right, what do we know about St. Andrew? Well, we know he was one of the original 12 disciples. In fact, he is called the first disciple of Christ. He was one of the first two who started following Jesus around. We know he was baptized by John the Baptist. And then what else do we know? His brother was Simon, who then became Peter. Upon this rock I will build my church, Peter. What else do we know? We know that later he was martyred. And we'll get into that a little bit about his particular death on a cross.
So the backstory is there's three artists down here who worked together. In 1995, we ran a guerrilla gallery, which is like a pop-up. A dress shop went out and we went in.
Gary Giacchetti here being one of those three artists. So he and a couple of buddies have their own shop some 25 years ago. And they're having a ball. I mean, they're sculptors, they're painters.
And just had a great time. And I have a dear friend, Jerry and Dean. And we worked together and painted. And Dean is a sculptor. Dean, for 20 years, drank. Did nothing but made no more sculpture, was a raging alcoholic, shaking and really didn't produce much of anything. As a philosopher, still has a brilliant mind, but, really had a alcoholic problem. And then at one point, about 5 years ago, Jerry called me and said, Dean's talking about suicide. So when I hear the word suicide, I go directly to the source, and I went and I took Dean, took him out to lunch, bought him a beer. Back in his apartment, there's a 20-foot ladder and a noose hanging from the 3-story rafter. So I said, Dean, this is unacceptable to me. Go get the rope, take the rope down. I just can't leave this situation the way it looks right now. So bring me the rope.
Did you know going back to his apartment that you were going to find that, or was that a total shock?
That was a shock. It was a shock, but it was there. There it was. It was not. I didn't expect that, but it was there, and at any moment he could have, taken the walk up, and he tells a story that he was so low at one point that he was going to do it. It was in the morning, and then he remembered that the trash can was out, which is, if you're going to kill yourself, why would you care if you left the trash cans out? And he said he went out and he encountered a blind woman walking up the street with her cane, tapping it. This is 5 a.m, tapping up the street, right in front of him. And he said, well, if she can survive. So it was kind of a reprieve for him. Now, I don't know if that's God's hand or not. But that's just a little sidebar.
Right.
And nothing changed. In fact, he was becoming not violent, but a very angry drunk, where to the point where Jerry was afraid to be with him. I said, Jerry, you have to stay away from him now. He's at a bad place. You just stay away and give him his space. So the story goes, I get the commission to do St. Andrew the Apostle. In the meantime, I had an armature, which is a steel skeleton, that's inside of statues when you make a statue. But I had one to do a St. Dominic of the Rosary.
So Gary here is going to use the inner metal framework that he used to create his St. Dominic statue to create his St. Andrew statue. But he has one big problem here. That metal framework in St. Dominic's looking up, and he needs his Andrew to be looking down. So the inner framework needs to be changed a bit.
So there's one piece of steel that I need to change. I need to cut that's holding the head. I need to change the direction of the way this piece of steel was attached to the armature. So I grind it off. The only person that has the welding equipment I know out in here is Dean. So I said to Jerry, well, maybe if we go early in the morning, we can catch him and we can get this weld done, and I can move on with the project. So I cut it off. We load it up in Jerry's truck, go out at 9:00 in the morning and drop it off. And Dean comes out of the house and he's drunk as a lord, just bombed, doing the S walk. But he says he can do it. He says he can do the weld. So, we said, well, I need this done. So Dean proceeds to, get the weld done. It was ugly. He's, burning styrofoam and fumes and as he's getting the weld done, but he got the weld done. And we put the armature back on the truck and back I came to the studio. The next day, Dean's done drinking. He said he felt like weights were lifted off his shoulder, and he just stopped drinking after 20 years of raging alcoholism.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a wow for both of you guys. I'm getting chills right now. I don't know.
Well,
this is
I mean, it's I mean, I'm convinced that he touched Andrew and that Andrew interceded for him.
Yeah.
So, it was to me, and to the priests that I've spoken to, I mean, it was a miracle. In fact, they asked me to document it. So I did write, I have this little newspaper black and white thing, and I did write the story about the intercession. And then kind of a happy little anecdote. Then Dean, last summer we had to make this cross, so I hired Dean to help me make Andrew's cross. It's a 9-foot. Andrew was crucified on an X. So we went up to the foundry, and it took us 5 weeks, and we ended up developing a way to make a 9-foot X cross.
You said it's more of an X than a T. Is that the idea?
Andrew's cross is an X.
Okay.
So anytime you see a statue with an X cross, that's Andrew.
So his legs are separated then.
Correct. He wasn't nailed. He was hung. He hung on the cross for 3 days.
So no food, no water, just hung there, and he died there.
And he died a martyr. Right. Well, okay. Peter and Andrew were brothers, and Andrew introduced Peter to Jesus. So that's
and of course Peter was crucified upside down because he
upside down, right?
He didn't feel worthy. He didn't feel worthy enough to go the way Christ did. So just put me upside down.
Right, and that's the same story with Andrew, is they didn't want to be crucified the same way as Jesus. So On the four parts, the top and bottoms of both beams, where Andrew would have been tied to the cross, we used the rope that he had hung as a noose.
Wow.
So now that's part of Andrew's cross, and testimony, of what I believe was the miracle, for my friend.
The rope that was going to be
A noose.
noose, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is on that statue right now.
It's in bronze. Yep, because they did a sand cast of the cross that we made. Dean and I made the cross, and then they sand cast it, which is a way to make a mold, and then cast it in bronze. So it's forever now part of that statue in bronze. But it's the rope. It was so the entire statue, the Andrew and the cross and the rope, everything is now cast bronze.
Wow,
So
that's just. And Dean is now sober. Nothing going on there. Is he a case of a guy who knows he's an alcoholic and just can't drink anymore? He knows that.
He absolutely knows that, and has no desire
For over a year now.
Over a year. Yep.
Does he go to the meetings and all that?
Nope. Nothing.
He never
Just
went to a meeting. He never went to a meeting. Just
nothing. Cold turkey.
Got touched
Just
by
totally. Yep.
Got touched by St. Andrew. That's enough. Goodbye.
That's it. And says he, just doesn't even have the desire to partake, which is, amazing in itself.
It's just, man, don't you love how God works?
I do. And the day of the opening it was raining all morning. It was supposed to rain. And then right as we went outside to do the unveiling, the sun came out right when the Monsignor blessed it.
Nice.
So
nice
yes.
touch. Nice touch, God. Yeah. Nice touch, God. I love it. And what was the date of that?
It was on the Divine Mercy Sunday this year. I think it was April 28th.
As far as the date that he was awakened, do you remember that day?
It had to be May 2018.
It's just what a fascinating story. What a wonderful, fortifying story. I mean, Dean, did either one of you ask for the intercession of Andrew?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. And I don't know that Jerry is religious.
Because it's interesting. Yeah, I'm getting chills again as I just think this, because I'm thinking that as people, this again, we did an episode called Calling on Saints, and we can. The bottom line here is we call on saints because it's all part of the body of Christ. These are completely purified souls now. I mean, Andrew, he already was he's already a saint, but
right.
Whether we go to Mary, go to Andrew, go to angels, whatever, they have this heavenly connection. We often don't have a problem with asking somebody else to pray for me. I'm going to be, I'm going in for an operation on Friday. But a lot of people have issue with going to saints who are in a higher place than we are,
Right, absolutely.
So I'm just getting chills all over the place here right now, because as that church, and I don't know how long that church has been there, but here with this new statue is an example of what we are to do. This is going to be in a place and an example of what we are to do with saints and call on saints to intercede for us. What a beautiful example.
It's fabulous. In fact, when we had the dedication, the Monsignor had a mass, and the dedication was after mass. Well, unbeknownst to me, I went to the mass, and he had me stand up in front of the congregation, and I did. And then he called me up to the altar, and I did. And then he made me, or he asked me if I would share the story of the miracle of St. Andrew.
Oh, that must have been a joy for you.
It was actually. I'm not normally real big on public speaking.
And as far as the location, is it within the church or outside the church?
No, it's outside the church. It's at the entrance. It's outside. And he's holding the X cross in his left hand, and he's holding the gospel in his right hand.
As you come up to the church, he's right there.
Correct. He's right. He's directly in front of the church. They had a statue that the Monsignor didn't like that was wood. He said the birds got it from on top and the worms got it from below, so he needed a new statue. So
I see. All right, let's go back to Dean here now. life-changing, obviously. Continue with his life here. Does he believe it was the saint?
Yes. Yeah, he does. He does, because he can't explain. He said he said it was like a physical weight was lifted off his shoulders.
Up to that moment, what was his connection with church, faith, saints, any of that?
I believe nil.
You never had a conversation. There was never any kind of comment made, or
not that I can recall. We always talked about art, and I always have had a religious slant. Not all my art is religious, but I do have, I've done Heads of Christ. I've done, other saint statues over the history of my career. So he's familiar with that I have a religious slant, but we never really, discussed that. I think as far as faith or anything.
And prayers to Dean. Anything you want to give us an update on Dean and where he is in his life now?
He's actually working at a campground offshore, which he hasn't worked in 25 years. So he's actually finding employment, he's in a good place.
Wow. What was he do? How did he survive? Who was helping him?
His dad, and then the state, and then his sister helped him out.
So they propped him up for 20 years, 20 plus years.
Yep. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, God bless you and the role you played in all this. God bless you.
I give it up to Andrew.
Amen. Amen to that.
It's not me.
What about Jerry? What's his connection there?
He believes that there was an intercession because he witnessed how sick Dean was more than I witnessed. They were probably closer. I mean, I lived abroad for 13 years and wife and been good practicing Catholics. Had 6 children, baptized and every Sunday Mass, and raised them, Catholic. That was our
right.
and practicing active.
Have you looked since then? Has this created any kind of special devotion for you to St. Andrew to find out more about him or others that have been touched by him?
What I'm doing is what I'm hoping to do is or what I'm praying for is I last summer I told the Monsignor I believe I'm being called to spend the rest of my life making saint statues, and I'm working on a Saint Therese of Lisieux right now, and I'm praying that my talents can be moved that way. Now I don't know that they are, because I'm not getting the email's not lighting up, or first I thought last year, well, men are going to have to do that. Men are going to have to figure out how to. So I was saying, bring him to me, and then I thought, no, maybe it's God, and then the priest told me, no, it's prayer. So it's I'm struggling with that right now.
So you're trying to figure out how the conversation is continuing with you.
That's what yes, exactly, exactly, because because of that experience, and actually it's been a little bit disappointing because I'm hoping that this stuff happens, but the problem is with doing bronze statuary, it's prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, like what did that statue cost the church?
$60,000. Yeah,
because it's very expensive for you to make that happen.
Absolutely. I mean, it's more than 60% of that was just the foundry cost.
Wow.
So it's not that I'm making oodles of money or living oceanfront, with a boat or anything, but it's But that's what I feel. That's my calling. But I can't, I can't just. I'm wrestling at it even now as I speak. Like, now do I just go to the studio and just start making a Saint Paul, or do I and then what if nobody wants the Saint Paul? So it's kind of right now I'm struggling with that.
Yeah, and it's the struggle with all Christians in this conversation. We don't want to leap to conclusions that aren't there, messages that aren't being sent to us.
Right.
I don't want to make this, that's what I want to do now, and it's not what God wants. I know that's always the struggle, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. But I really enjoy, being able to use my talents to, proclaim the gospel and the glory of God.
Well, we're going to add everybody's prayers right now that's listening. They're going to go through St. Andrew right now. Ask St. Andrew to kind of send you a sign. Maybe one way or the other, or maybe no sign just means not quite yet. I don't know, but
Yep.
just to kind of send a prayer that you get whatever message that is, and that you're open. The thing about God, he sends messages in the most interesting ways. Even that healing was just crazy. That's just crazy. I have no doubt you're going to get your message.
Okay.
Well,
that's comforting.
Yeah.
That's comforting. Yeah.
Well, what about? Well, you mentioned. Did you make a Saint Therese of Lisieux?
I'm working on her right now.
Okay. Have you asked? Well, she's the easiest way to get a sign.
Absolutely.
Have you asked for anything from her in terms of a rose?
I'm at that place right about now. I'm coming to that realization that through her intercession and as I work on her, that she'll show me the way.
Yeah, we just had an episode a couple of weeks back where this one woman who had roses growing in the front yard got this push to go give someone she barely knew one of those roses. And it's like, and she fought it. She's like, I'm not doing, I don't even know her. What am I doing? And then she finally it just wouldn't leave her alone. So she delivered a rose to her and then found out that she had been praying to Saint Therese, little flower, she wanted to get an answer about her daughter having a baby and that would be healthy and all. Anyway, so it was all connected and blew that woman away that got the rose, just blew her away because she was praying. So you never know how Saint Therese might just send you a rose somehow to say, yeah,
absolutely, yep.
Yeah, continue on.
Yep.
Or maybe when you're done with that statue, something else happens at that moment. Who knows? Who knows?
Right.
What does the Saint Therese statue look like? Where is the rose incorporated in that, or is it?
Well, actually, the more research I do on her, I'm actually have her holding a little flower. I'm reading the Story of a Soul, which is her autobiography, and I believe that she's a little bit more, that she's the little flower in the forest. So I have her arm outstretched, holding a little flower, and then in her other arm, she's cradling the crucifix to her heart.
Okay, beautiful. Because she considered herself one of the little flowers in the giant garden of God. Yeah, so
exactly.
That's perfect. That's beautiful.
Yep.
I don't know why I keep getting chills talking to you, Gary, but I keep getting chills. So something's going on here, buddy.
All right. Well, then that's a good thing, right? There's maybe that's a sign. Maybe through your connections, something. I
don't know. It's all connected. All the saints are connected. We're connected to the saints. The saints are connected to God. It's all just Jesus, the whole thing. We're all connected. It's a beautiful sign of how we're all connected to each other.
It really is. And I have a good friend who's a priest. So just make them human. They're the saints. The saints were human. The saints, they're not angelic. They're not. They were human.
Yeah, they're us. They went through the same stuff. All the same stuff. Something going on here.
Well, let's keep it going.
Yeah, let's stay in touch. And if you get updates, please let me know. Please let me know. Okay.
All right. I'll put you in my phone contact.
There you
go. Where are you?
Cleveland. We're in Cleveland.
Cleveland. Oh, great.
Yeah, we moved here for the weather.
We're in Avalon, New Jersey, and my studio and galleries in Stone Harbor.
God bless you and your work and the work you're doing, Gary. God bless you.
Thank you. He has. That's the one thing he has. So I'm just trying to use it.
Thanks, Gary. What's the takeaway today? What did God just say in this conversation, this encounter? What did God just tell us? The saints are there for us. They're still working for us. They will intercede for us, as certainly St. Andrew did. Another takeaway, another part of the conversation is it's just always amazing, isn't it, how God will take just some of the most awful, awful things and turn them into blessings. What good could possibly come from being nailed to a cross? Only everything. What good could come from a noose, a hangman's noose? A beautiful piece of art, a blessing. Just remarkable how God will do that. The other takeaway from this is just kudos to Gary again, how he's not jumping to the conclusion of, oh, this is what I need to be doing right now. He's waiting for that okay. He's waiting for the conversation to continue, and maybe it's going to happen through St. Therese, maybe through St. Andrew, that he gets his yes, and he may never get that yes to, this is what you're supposed to be doing, just do the saints. I know that's what you want to do, but maybe God has an in-between part of the story, or maybe that's not going to be part of it, or now and then. Who knows? But I love the patience of Gary, that he's waiting to get that okay. So continue, send a prayer Gary's way that sign come through very loud and clear of what that next step is. I still have chills from all of that. That was very cool. Way to go, Andrew. Way to go. I was just thinking now about what other saints have we had pop up that have shown that when you pray to them, they intercede. They are there. I think about Saint Bernadette. The episode 35, if memory serves, Lemonade from Lemons. Zoe, local girl too. Zoe was born completely blind. Her mom, Sarah. Sarah was very young. Here she's got this completely blind child, but Sarah's parents, very faithful, said, well, we'll just travel to Lourdes, France and get some of that water, some of that healing water. Saint Bernadette and all of that, have Saint Bernadette intercede for us. And of course, the Blessed Mother Mary involved in that whole story as well. But we'll just go get some water and bring it back and bless little Zoe and see if what faith, what absolutely beautiful faith. And so off they went. They brought back the water. And Mom Sarah there is kind of rolling her eyes like, yeah, whatever. The parents are saying, now, look, you bless Zoe every day on her eyes with this water. Okay, And if you remember, if you heard the episode, a spoiler alert if you haven't, go to episode 35 if you don't want me to tell you. But the beauty was Zoe, when she would have her Cheerios on the tray, Sarah would sprinkle the Cheerios on her tray as she sat there in the high chair. And since she couldn't see, she would just sweep across that tray, grabbing the Cheerios. And after they started blessing her with the Lourdes water, she started zeroing in on the Cheerios. And Sarah was like, whoa. Took her back to the doctor. Sure enough, Zoe had vision in one of her eyes, no peripheral, just a little bit of help, just a little bit of vision. And as someone who's legally blind, every little bit you have helps so much. The other eye stayed completely blind, but she's gone through all high school years now with that little bit of vision that has helped her. She has her white cane, and she texted me not long ago. She now has a guide dog, and now she's going to be going off to college in the fall, and she's doing great. But the bigger miracle than Zoe, as I always say, is Sarah, the mom, who was awakened by that miracle that happened to her daughter. That awakened her. That got her back to church. She joined a women's group at a church. She's now all in her faith and at her parish. And that's the even bigger miracle than Zoe. And all through the intercession of St. Bernadette, Blessed Mother Mary. That's a great intercession story. And there's so many of those kinds of stories out there. And if you have one where a saint intervened for you, interceded for you, something incredible happened, please let me know. That's just one of the stories you can tell me by going to touchedbyheaven.net and let me know your story, and I'll get back to you. Also, if you like a whole boatload of stories, the stories that brought me back to the church after 30 years of being disconnected, that's what the presentation, Did You Hear What God Just Said, is all about. And whether it's for you to fortify your faith or to help somebody else in their faith that you want to kind of reel back in with some amazing stories, the kind of stories, I just wish I'd have heard the stories when I was much younger. It just might have given me pause before I went a-walking, if you know what I mean. So if you have someone that you care about that you'd like to have here some amazing stories, truthful stories, scientific stories, the presentation is Did You Hear What God Just Said? And it's available at TrapperJackSpeaks.com now as a download. All right? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. I will see you next week. I'm Trapper Jack.